guys for showing up. I'm doing an informal speech for my speech communication class for Leadbeck Community College. Today we're going to be talking about the infamous serial killer Ted Bundy. We have all heard the advice not to get into a car with strangers, but this was once an enjoyable activity, an activity that you were able to do freely in safety. That all changed with one man that killed over 30 women in 7 different states, a man that terrorized people for years to come, even after he was put into prison. I am doing this topic on a personal interest on criminal behavior. Apologize. I was always wondered why people have the urge and need to kill. Have any of you ever wondered why someone has the urge to kill? I have thought the same thing. Ted Bundy talks about how he had a lot of such psychological factors that played into why he felt like he had to kill these women. And we are going to talk about them today. Ted Bundy was born as Theodore Caldwell in 1946, November 24th, in a place called Elizabeth Lohead of unwed mothers. His mother had the baby here because she was unwed and it was frowned upon back then to have a kid out of wedlock. After this, she ended up moving back into town with her parents, back into Philadelphia. This is where we went. This is her grandparents' house. This is where he spent the first 4 years of his life. With that, these are his grandparents. Ted talked about how his grandpa was a very abusive man. He only knew of his grandparents as his actual parents. Never once did they tell them about how they adopted him because of how unfit it was for a woman to have a kid out of wedlock. After this, Ted talked about how he was in survival mode constantly from his grandpa. Talked about how his grandpa hit him, kicked him, and even threw him down the stairs. After this, his mother ended up moving him to Tacoma, Washington. This is where he met his stepdad. With that, this is where he became Ted Bundy. After his mom and Jonathan Bundy got married, and he formally adopted him. With that, he went to go have 3 step-siblings, 2 step-siblings, sisters, and 1 brother, who have not ever wanted to speak out about why their step-sibling, Ted Bundy, went to murder all these people. With that, after that, we ended up staying in Tacoma, Washington for the last few years of his childhood and then early adulthood. We ended up going to the University of Washington in 1972. Later attended both universities for Utah for a lawyer degree and wanted to be a politician. With these, he did an undergrad study of psychology. He wanted to go into psychology to understand people better. He grew up as a kid who was very shy, very uneducated, and very poor. With that, he never had any friends. He wanted to understand how to connect with people, manipulate them, and understand them completely. With this, he ended up using all of those situations to control all his outcomes. It wasn't until later on his cousins told him that his real mother was his sister. Whenever they told him that, he did not believe them. He ended up finding his birth certificate to confirm that. We want to go talk about his, I'm sorry you can't see it too well, but these are all his other cousins that wanted to tell him the truth about who his real mother was. This circled one right here, this is Ted Bundy. I was hoping the sides would look a little bit better, I apologize. With that, he ended up not understanding who he was. He felt like who he was on the inside did not match how he was on the outside. So he started lying to people, telling him different kind of stories about how he was, who he was, and how he grew up. All these different lies he kept telling different people to make them feel like he was more important than he was. This all led back to whenever he finally got his very first girlfriend, who he lied to about who he was, to get her to love him. This woman is a very high status woman, and her name is Elizabeth Kettner, who he dated for the majority of his murders between 1969 and 74. This is who also wrote The Phantom of the Prince and The Life of Ted Bundy. During this time, she had no idea that Ted Bundy had already murdered over 15 girls at this point. She talked about on the stand how she never once saw any difference with him because of how much he is a master of manipulator. They ended up breaking up in 1974 due to not being able to get into a pristine college or his lawyer degree. With that, he felt like he was never going to get onto the same level with her, and he could not handle that as a man. With that, he did go ahead and get his psychological degree to help him lie and manipulate people better. This is one of the main factors that presents with him on how he does not have any empathy, lacks all types of moral corrections, and how he has no regard for someone else's life. This all played into a factor on how he was able to kidnap these women with no remorse, how he was able to rape, murder these women, and have no caring for them whatsoever. Between 1974 and 1978, he went ahead and carried out multiple different murders, including in Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, Indiana, Florida, and California. He went ahead and confessed to over 30 different murders with all these women. The investigators do believe that number is significantly higher, in the range of 100 different women, all from the ages of 8 years old to 26 years old, all women. The little 8-year-old, he does multiple times deny ever killing, but since it is in the same area that he was operating in, she was murdered the exact same way. They do believe he was also the one that committed that one, but he never formally said he did. We are going to go ahead and talk about the very first woman that he did attack. This woman was a strong woman named Karen Sparks. She ended up getting attacked in her college dorm that Bundy was let into by pretending that he broke his leg. He acted like he broke his leg and injured it to be able to gain access with her to get into her room. As she was getting into her room to help call for someone to help with it, he ended up attacking her. He tied her to the metal bed frame and stabbed her multiple times, leaving her severely injured, but she did survive and later testified against him. This is going to be one of the only people that ever survives from Ted Bundy's attack, and he made sure that no one else survived after this. We go ahead and talk about how he struggles with power and how he feels like he has to do these types of things to feel some type of control from his life of being abused, neglected, and how he felt like his family was so impoverished that he wasn't able to have any say in anything. After this, we went to Chicago. Not Chicago, I apologize. To a sorority house in Florida. Bundy often calculated how he's going to lie to these women, manipulate them, and how to get them to gain their trust. We went ahead and he talked about how he loved this car. This is his death wagon vehicle. Back in 1968, when he was still with his ex-fiancée, her father was a powerful lawyer, and that is where he gained his interest and wanted to be one. He also had an 86 Volkswagen Beetle, and how he adored this man so much he wanted to get his own with some modifications. The modifications are, we took out the seat beside him and we laid down the seats behind, so whenever he was able to kidnap a girl, he was able to throw her back there and have all the doors locked so no one could get out. The seats laid so far back, whenever another vehicle passes, you weren't able to see no one in the back seat. This is how he got away with multiple murders and driving away with dead bodies. With this, he talked about how he was in jail multiple times and got out of it just by lying and manipulating to the men, on talking about how he was not that kind of guy. This plays into a man talking to another man about how he can never do that. He might have had an argument with a woman, but they were just emotional, and that's what led to him getting out multiple times over misunderstandings. All of these play into on how we get to our very first kill. On February 1st, 1974, we have Lyndon and Hell, a 21-year-old university student who he did not actually go to school with. He went back to Washington and wanted to, since he still had his badge to get in, wanted to continue to murder there. This is about a few years after his first accident with our first victim. After this, he successfully was able to kill her and get away with it for multiple years. He was able to have such an influence on the people in Washington University that he was able to convince them that he had no idea who she was. She never did this, and it was just a freak accident. I want to show y'all the timeline of everyone that we killed within the same time. We started off with our first victim, who she wasn't actually dead, so we didn't put her on here. But after we went from Linda, we ended up very shortly going to Jonah Gale, a 19-year-old woman who is still in the Washington area. She was also a student at Washington University. He went on to, from there, straight to Susan, who is an 18-year-old female who also was at the university. At this point, he was starting to get caught on to, and people were starting to fear for their lives at the Washington University. They had heavy cop presence, and they had multiple people there just to be safe. He then went to just Oregon and started killing in Oregon State. So our very first girl, Kathy Parks, a 20-year-old female. She was the very first one that he also has a situation with where he had to lay low for a little bit because someone else spotted him. He was questioned, but later on let go due to knowing how the legal process works. He was able to manipulate it in his favor to get released for being a suspect. After that, we went straight into killing Miss Carol Ball, age 22, that following month. He did not waste no time in killing these women, and he did the same things to every single one of them. He acted like he was injured. He gained their trust. He gained their sympathy enough to put them in a car, tie them up, take them back to his place, rape, kill them, and slice their throats. This was a pattern that he did not see with any kind of situation or any kind of problem. After that, we went to Georgina, an 18-year-old female in the same state. Once again, we held her down, slit her throat, and left her there for dead. This was talked about over and over and over again on how he brutally assaulted them, left them with permanent injuries, and did not survive at all. When the coroners saw their bodies, he did not understand how one single person could put somebody through so much injuries that if he didn't slice their throats, multiple of the other injuries would have killed her as well. After that, we went ahead to Janice in 1974 still, and we went ahead and killed her as well. She was living at her home just by herself, freshly got her own new home, and was waiting for her fiance to show up. Her fiance did not show up in time and ended up having to call the police, and he was investigated for months on if he was the actual killer. He never got any type of conviction, and later on, when Ted Bundy was on the stand, he admitted to the court that it was actually him. For multiple years, the poor ex-fiance was scrutinized, was talked about in town, and ended up having to leave his own state because everyone thought he was the killer, until years later when Ted actually confessed to it. With all the crimes he did commit, these were only in Washington and Oregon, and only in 1 year. After that, we went ahead and moved to Utah and Colorado to avoid all of the accusations and the cops' presence. He felt like if he crossed the border, he knows the state doesn't go state to state, so he knew he would be fresh on a clean slate in these states. We went to immediately killing Nancy, a 16-year-old who was walking by the park. This girl, she is still in high school as a sophomore, and she was walking home after class. She saw a man who injured and was trying to help him. That helping him out led to her death that same day. After Nancy, we went ahead to Melissa, a 17-year-old female who was just out of high school. Talking to her family, she was very smart. She was able to complete high school a year early. With that, she was already about to get ready to set forth to Florida for college. Unfortunately, she did not make it there due to Ted Bundy finding her before then. He held her one of the longest times. He had her for 4 whole days before he ended up killing her and dumping her body. Once we hit Melissa, we went straight to Lauren, not even a few weeks later. Lauren was a 17-year-old female who was also in the same town that our other 2 victims were in. After this, there were police, there were curfews. Women were not allowed to walk alone at night or even in the daytime. They were terrorized for months, not knowing who was killing these women. No woman was allowed to go outside without a male with them, and they were not allowed to walk at night past 6 p.m. They were so terrified in all of this that they had no idea that Lauren even disappeared. Lauren disappeared for a whole 24 hours before she was wound up found dead in a park. After this, he started getting a little bit more faster, or not faster, slower, I mean. We ended up going to Carol Campbell, January 12th, 1975, in the same area. With her, he ended up keeping her for 2 days, while multiple times raping her, holding her down, and then slicing her throat ultimately. He said that she was a very nice woman, and she forgave him for all of his crimes. This is the only woman that he's talked about who ever spoke back to him without pleading for her life. All the other women did talk about how they pleaded for the life, they acted defenseless, and at that moment, he did not care. They all wanted the same thing, or just to be let go and go to his family. This is the first one that struck him and apologized, and he did not understand why. Coming from someone who does not understand feelings, he was very confused on her. Did not change the way he was though. She still met the same fate as everybody else. We go ahead and head to Julie Cunningham, 26-year-old female, same area. She actually was our first one in Utah. Once he hit Utah, he hit near a sorority. Trying to say that right. My bad, guys. We hit a sorority, and she was walking home alone after the sorority, going to get ice cream. Now, none of them in Utah had any idea what happened in Colorado, so they all walked around freely. There was no sense of having any scaredness. He was completely fine. Until she saw Mr. Ted, who was acting injured, and unfortunately, she was kidnapped and killed the same way. We then moved to Denise very quickly, not even a whole month later. We're just another one that she was hitchhiking, got into a ride with the wrong person, unfortunately. After that, we head to Lynette Culver, a 12-year-old girl. This is documented to be one of the smallest kids that he ever abducted, that he confessed to. With her, she was playing in the front yard. He was walking by and acted injured and had her help him around a corner. There is where he sat his beetle. He tied her up and threw her into it, and no one ever saw her again after that. He actually had to help police locate her remains so the family could have some peace for her remains. After that, we were getting pretty close to having the cops on our tail. So we did end up in Florida for our very last few kills. This is where they were starting to have FBI involved in connecting Washington to Oregon, Oregon to Colorado, Colorado to Utah. So he escaped to Florida, where he killed our last 3 victims. Miss Suzanne and Kurtz was 15 years old when she first got abducted. She was on the beach. It was about 7 p.m. at night. She was told that she was going to be walking home once the street lamps came on. She never made it home, The police were called contact not even 12 hours later of her not showing up, and they did an investigation, and by the time the 24 hours hit to where you can file a missing persons report, they already found her remains. After that, he laid low for quite a while because his face was all over the news. The FBI found from our very first attack victim and gave a sketch and was able to detect through all the timelines of who it was and how he was doing this. From the very last one, he was able to spend a few weeks or a few months from going from Suzanne to Margaret. Margaret was not alone whenever he did this attack. He attacked Margaret, Lisa, and he brutally beat Katie and Chandler, who did later die in the hospital from their injuries. With these, he also attacked a sorority. In the middle of the night, he first successfully killed Margaret and Lisa at the same time before anyone else woke up. The people who woke up ended up being Karen and Kathy, who tried to defend themselves and tried to fight off the attacker, and they left them with a broken neck and a broken spine and multiple different stab injuries. He did later on die in the hospital, unfortunately. After this, he knew he was getting close because the police were already on the way to him in this situation. So he was able to make one final kill after laying low for almost a month to Miss Kimberly. Kimberly was the last reach that they had to crack the investigation completely open. With all of these factors and all these poor women who died, and just from having to help Ted, from someone who's saying that they are injured and hurt and everything, with all these factors considered together, it has become clear that Ted's actions cannot be explained in any single one case. He talks about how his behavior resulted in a combination of the influences that he had in his life, from his grandpa to the politicians to his mother not being his real mother and being his sister and not actually being his sister, to his cousins who laughed at him, who made jokes about him. All of this changed his personality. All of it changed how he was and all of his appearances. In conclusion, Ted Bundy was a very complicated man who shared multiple different factors of not only just being a criminal investigation, of understanding why. We had to analyze his entire life, from his early childhood to all the techniques to why he ended up doing all of these. So the psychological factors that included why he was like this, to his own torment, to his own situations, from being poor to not liking that, being made fun of for being poor. All that was a combination of everything that was happening. There was not one single reason on why he snapped like that. He had all of these different things going on, and ultimately there were warning signs from multiple people who he lied to. He would tell them one thing and immediately switch it to another thing. But instead of catching on to those, instead of helping themselves and understanding that people could lie in a time and age where people were just there to be kind to each other, he was able to take advantage of multiple women. All of his methods and all his traits combined showed how he was a dangerous person and how you cannot trust anyone on the outside and how they actually are. It goes to show that looks can be deceiving and how not everybody has the best outcome for you or the best interest in their own hearts. So with this all being said, you do have to watch who you come in contact with, who you are to trust, and what's going on in their actual lives. Thank you guys all very much. Thank you for coming to my